Welcome to Lifestyle Sports Training with T. Price. I am T. Price. On this episode, we take a little different path than we had done in the past. Today, we bring some accomplished assistant coaches as we discuss the assistant coach's journey. So with that, we're going to introduce the panel as I see them. First, we're going to introduce from the University of Oklahoma assistant coach dealing with the horizontal jumps, Coach Austin Davis. Then we have from Mississippi State University associate head coach who deals with more of the throws, Coach April Thomas. Next, we have a former volunteer coach from Texas A&M University, now the lead sprints hurdles coach with ALTIS training group, and also professional track coach, Andreas Behm. We have from North Carolina A&T State University, associate head coach dealing with the jumps at this particular institution, Coach Tempest Vance. Next, we have the head cross-country coach, assistant track and field coach at Washburn University, Coach David Granato. And here we go with our first question for this panel. It's very simple. I do this with everybody who comes on the show. How did you get involved in coaching and your path to where you are now? Let's take that with Coach Vance.
Okay, so my experience or path was a unique one. I actually had another year of eligibility left when I graduated from South Carolina State, and I was toying with, going back and finishing that. Also, I was in the process of working at a physical therapy clinic in Columbia because my goals were to go to PT school. So Coach Cooper actually got the opportunity to be the head coach at Bethune-Cookman, who was also my event coach. So then I was just kind of like, okay, well, if he's going to be gone, I'm just going to just go ahead and just let track go. But he actually called and gave me an opportunity, asked me if I wanted to come down and be his assistant coach. And I thought about it for about a week. And then, I packed my little Mitsubishi Eclipse up with as much as I could. And I drove down from Columbia to Daytona Beach. And, I've been coaching ever since. I was there for 3 years, coached horizontal jumps and vertical jumps there as well. And then I transitioned to North Carolina A&T in 2012 and, been coaching ever since.
Coach Davis.
Yeah, similar to Coach Vance. I grew up running club track. My family has a pretty big club team in North Carolina, the Durham Striders. So I grew up around a lot of coaches. Even my email address is another Coach Davis because most of my uncles and my father and cousins are all coached. So it's kind of in there. Like Coach Vance, my senior year, I had an opportunity to compete or to coach. Kind of knew I wanted to get into coaching, so I took a crack at volunteer coaching at Carolina. I pretty much thought I was just going to be cutting the grass or washing clothes. That particular season, I had Coach got sick, Coach Craddock. He got sick, and my mentors got bumped up to interim head coach, Coach Langley. So I think I was volunteering for 2 days, and he came to me. He was like, "Hey, man, how much do you really know about track?" I was like, "I think I know a lot." He was like, "All right, cool, because you coaching the jumps, man. I ain't got time for this. I got to run the whole team." So I kind of got thrown into the fire, but it was good. I started off volunteering at my alma mater. I was fortunate at the end of that year to have some quite a few regional qualifiers and a national qualifier. And the next year I was fortunate, to get picked up full time right out of school, which isn't always common. The coach at a Division II school at Winston-Salem State. Kind of went from there.
Okay. Coach Andreas.
Yes, well, maybe a little unusually. I don't have a track background, nor did I want to be a track coach starting off. My goal was to work in sports and be a general manager. And so I came to the States from Europe thinking that I was going to study sport management and I was going to help out with the track team, because if I could understand movement, I could help identify the best talent, whether it be in football, baseball, basketball, soccer, whatever it be. And lo and behold, I kind of fell in love with the sport. You know, most pure movements that you can think of in human form are running and jumping and throwing. And I really liked the personal interaction and, you know, helping the athletes and whatnot. So I started from scratch as a team manager at Tennessee, where I went to undergrad. Then I went to Texas for grad school, was basically like an unofficial grad assistant there. I learned a lot during my time there. And after that stop, I kind of knew I wanted to coach, but I know I needed a lot more experience. Because again, I've never competed in track. I just basically knew what I'd observed at that point. So I went and became a volunteer assistant for 8 years. Yes, 8 years at Texas A&M. That's a long time to be a volunteer assistant. But it basically was an extended, it was basically like an apprenticeship. And I call it like my doctorate, because I have a master's degree, but I've kind of considered that my doctorate, where I really learned to coach hands-on, not just collegiately, but also we had as we kind of gained notoriety, we had a large professional group, and I was in charge of a lot of the professionals in the morning because I had time. And so I was coaching lots of different sessions throughout the day, sometimes 3 sessions a day on the track, 2 in the weight room. So that really accelerated my coaching knowledge. Watched as much film as I could get my hands on, read everything I could read. And at that point, our professional group was doing really, really well. And I basically got recruited to come to what is now ALTIS. It was formerly known as the World Athletics Center, to be part of a coaching staff. And that's kind of where I've been now for the last almost 7 years.
Coach April.
Well, mine is kind of similar to some of you guys, or a little bit unorthodox, shall I say. I was just actually finishing up school at University of Tennessee. And while I was finishing up, the whole time I was there, I was working for Knoxville Track Club and one of the local high schools. So I knew I wanted to coach. So my coach, the head coach at the time, was Coach J.J. Clark. So he basically asked me what I want to do. I was like, I want to coach. So, you know, he was like, go coach. So I, you know, just, you know, applying for any job at the time that was available, any level. And I got a call from Mississippi State one day asking me, was I still looking for a job? And I'm like, yeah. Because, you know, at that point, I was just like, I had a plan, you know, if I, you know, didn't get a job, I was hoping to stay there, you know, go to grad school, maybe help out with the track team. So they called me for an interview, offered me the job. I've been here ever since. So that's my journey coming to Mississippi State. So talk about being thrown in the fire. I was like a deer in the headlights too. So,
Coach David.
Yeah. Let's see. So I was never the best athlete when I was an athlete, but I was always really competitive, and I wanted to be on teams that achieved something. And so, you know, in high school, I was a role player, but my senior year, we went to state for the first time in the school's history. In college, same thing. I was all 4 years of college. I was 5th runner on the cross country team, but the team got better every year. So my junior and senior, we were the bottom of the conference. I think my freshman year, my junior and senior year, we won for the first time in 20 years. And so I was just really liked holding people accountable and being competitive and wanting to get after it and help other people kind of get the most out of themselves. And so that's kind of how I fell into coaching. Was I was like, well, that's what I've been doing this whole time. I guess I like coaching. And so I wanted to go learn from the best. And so I ended up going to A&T State. I drove 2,000 miles across the country from Massachusetts to Colorado with about a week's notice to get there to start out as a graduate assistant, and spent 5 years there learning from, in my opinion, the best distance coach in the country, Damon Martin. And, you know, got kind of like Coach said, got my master's from the school and got my doctorate in coaching from learning from somebody who really knows what they're doing. So yeah, that's how I got into it.
Okay. Well, let's go to this next question here. What did you find difficult? It seemed like y'all didn't have anything too much difficult in everything, but what did you find difficult in your pursuit for a coaching position? Coach David?
Well, I'll probably say just getting denied for jobs when I didn't have experience. I was fortunate enough, honestly, to be able to land a full-time paying job right out of college at a Division II school, but trying to, to work my way up, just to get paid more money. I'm married now with a child on the way. So, I knew the salary that I had then wasn't going to be enough to sustain me if I did want to, to be able to get married and to have a family one day. Just being able to, I think the thing that stood in front of me a lot was networking. I got thrown into a situation, or I was fortunate enough to be in a situation where was very hands-on. I didn't have a strength and conditioning certification, but I was doing our team's weights. I was the team academic advisor. Heck, I did parking lot attendant stuff at our football games. Heck, I was calling it. I was the guy on the sideline with it, the mic on his ear calling the TV timeouts. Cross country, you name it, I did it. So that was great. I got a lot of hands-on experience. I really love Winston-Salem State, ready to be able to contribute anyway in the athletic department, whether it was coaching, academic advising, strength and conditioning, you name it, game day operations. So, just being able to be able to get a higher paying gig after that was a little bit difficult because I didn't spend a lot of time networking. I didn't know a whole lot of people outside kind of the bubble that I was in. So just kind of getting my name out there was the thing that I kind of found difficult for me, because I'm not, now you may not know it, but I'm not the most outgoing guy. I'm a homebody, so this right here, my wife hates that I got this oversized chair in our bedroom because I won't leave the room now, So for me, that was the biggest thing, just getting out of my comfort zone and meeting more people and being more personable. I think that was the hardest thing. And, once I was able to do that, then, I started really kind of breaking through whatever setbacks I felt like I had, and things kind of started opening up for me.
Coach April?
I think for me, the two things that I found difficult, first thing is being a female throws coach. And, we all know that's a male dominant area. So it was and still is a struggle, because sometimes, you find yourself in a situation where sometimes I feel like I'm working 10 times as harder to kind of prove myself to my male counterparts. And secondly, being able to show them like, hey, I can do this too, regardless that I am a female. So that's one thing I find difficult, which is not going to stop me, because I'm still going to, go out here and do my job. And I feel like the second thing is just, I guess early on, especially just being able to change my work ethic in a sense. I found it difficult because I was coming from, being an athlete, straight from being an athlete. So my work ethic was, going to practice, working hard, going in the weight room, lifting hard, getting good grades and stuff like that. So it kind of transitioned and shifted to, okay, now my work ethic has to become, okay, I'm going to be on the phone with recruits every day. I'm going to be on the road a lot of the time, so you miss out on certain things with your as family, or even just being in the office. So that kind of, changed in a sense for, my work ethic like that. So, but I think it changes for the better. It also, made me grow up a little bit and grow fast, because I knew that, hey, if I wanted to be good at my job and most importantly, stay employed, I had to do those things. I had to, become a student of my sport, continue to become a student of my sport, and just, learn something new every day, ask questions, do stuff like that. So I think my work ethic just shifted in a different way versus athlete becoming the coach. So I think those were the two difficult things, and some, you still struggle with, because, even as coaches, like missing out on certain things. So especially the ones I don't have a family. So, but for you guys to have a family, I get it. So those things probably the two things I found difficult, or finding difficult, shall I say.
David?
I'd say the biggest thing was, kind of like Coach mentioned previously, was kind of finding that first job where getting paid enough to have coaching be the full-time job and give it the attention it deserves, and you don't have to worry about paying rent or buying food, or if you've got a family, taking care of your family. I think that's the hardest part, and yeah, it's a high barrier to entry, but I think it's worth it to do it, and if you have the opportunity to do it. But yeah, that's the hardest part.
Tempest.
I would say the most difficult part was just that transition, kind of with like what April said, especially as a young coach. My position, I was just running with these athletes who were now calling me Coach Temp at the time, because I could not even hear Coach Vance. I remember we were out to dinner after the MEAC cross country championship, and that's right, like a couple of days when I got there, that's where we were on our way to. And the athletes, we were all sitting at the table, and one of them was just like, Coach Vance, and Coach Cooper was like, they're calling you. I couldn't even hear it, because I just wasn't used to it. So just that transition of being a young female, just getting that respect. It's a little easier to get that respect from your female athletes at times, but just try to get that respect and let them know that it changes. From the moment you start coaching, you need, especially young coach, just go ahead and add 10 years to your age, because you have to create that line of separation, even though you may have, you share common likes, TV, music, whatever it may be. But I think that was one of the biggest, I wouldn't say it was difficult. It was just like it's something that you had to do, and it had to be such a hard switch, come when you're a young coach. And then, also, being a female coach out there, just kind of standing your ground and, letting other coaches know that, hey, I can do this too. We're going to get that. And, but those are the main two, I would say, that were difficult for me.
Andreas, I'm in with you, but it's like I'm hearing other people talking about families. I'm trying to, how did you do it also at the same time as a volunteer for that many years, financially as well?
Yeah, well, a couple strategic decisions. Luckily, College Station is very affordable to live in. And so, obviously one of the struggles was to make it work financially. And the first couple of years, really, I did personal training on in the morning times to kind of support what I was doing. Like, I didn't have a car. I'd ride my bike everywhere, which was probably great for my waistline, and maybe I should keep doing that right now. But yeah, so all those things kind of, factored in. I was fortunate. I also had the support of my parents, even though they probably thought I was crazy to be volunteering all those hours for free. But I think they thought I had a plan in that sense. But yeah, I think as we went on, we started getting more and more professional athletes. So I actually got paid through the professional athletes in the morning and through a training group, which then helped sustain everything. I still kept riding the bike. Nothing changed. It just continued. But I think the struggles really were, again, balancing the financial aspect with, being able to acquire as much knowledge and practical skills to become a coach as possible. And then also being patient, because initially, nobody knew who I was. I didn't have a name. And then slowly as A&M started getting better and better, I was fortunate enough that I was able to network, and people would associate me with the program as well, or part of the program, even if it was a small part. And then it was just a matter of being patient and trying to find the right opportunity, and maybe not jump at the first thing that comes your way. And I realized some people may not have that option, but I enjoyed where I was. I was already broke. So I was like, well, I can be broke for a little longer, not my entire life, but a little longer. And finding a situation where I felt that I could grow and I could be successful in, because maybe there were some opportunities that became available that I felt like, maybe this wasn't the right fit. So for me, it was a matter of establishing myself and being patient with the potentially right opportunity.
Okay. Interesting. So as we look at different things, and most people go throughout this season, and some people have different things of how they view assistant coaches. And we have a different array of coaches here from different levels and everything. So what does your typical out of season or preseason week look like as far as duties, or what are you doing during that week? And what does your one during the in season look like as well? Coach April.
You talking about from a training aspect or just like my duties?
Your duties and everything.
Usually, well, you know, as coaches, you don't spend that much time in the office. You know, majority of your time is out on the track. But when I am in the office, I for my group especially, you know, just coordinating recruiting stuff in all different areas, talking with other coaches, making sure, like, you know, when we out on the road that we kind of covering all area. We're just not necessarily just going to see that one kid, but like, hey, if it's a jumper in that area, you know, let's make sure we utilize, you know, the bang for our buck, shall I say. Just doing stuff like that. Making sure that some things as simple as making sure I guess I hate to call them custodial workers or whatever, making sure they're, you know, doing their part with our locker rooms or keep what they're supposed to do at the track and stuff like that. That's mainly my duties, along with housing, making sure our kids, incoming freshmen or transfers, they have to stay on campus and stuff like that, making sure that they have their housing situated and making sure they do everything they have to do to get housing. So that's pretty much out of season. That's what we're doing, and just making sure kids staying out of trouble. But that's more collectively a staff thing. Make sure everyone is staying out of trouble and doing what they're supposed to do. In the season, I would say my main duties is, you know, making sure everybody is paying attention to our teamworks. That's their livelihood. So making sure the kids are reading their teamworks, make sure they know what's going on, when we're leaving, what the next meeting is for anything. So making sure they stay on top of that, and so they get to places on time, because especially the bus for meets, because if you ain't no time, we will leave you. So we have no problem doing that. So just stuff like that. So they can't say they're not informed, because I make sure I you know, throw a lot at them so they can't say they don't know. So that's primarily my duties in and out of season.
Coach Andreas.
Yeah, so my situation is obviously a little bit different right now outside of the NCAA realm. So my duties don't really change much from off season to in season necessarily. There's several. So obviously one of the first duties I have is naturally coaching, taking care of an event group, namely right now the short hurdlers. Beyond that, I'm in charge of a lot of educational opportunities and experiences that we put on, whether it's in person or coordinating things that we're doing online, whether that's articles or courses and whatnot. So, you know, beyond that, you know, we obviously are running a business, so I have to liaise a lot with different staff members. I liaise with a lot of inquiries that we get from coaches on a variety of different topics and things of that nature, and pretty much do everything else that requires, you know, having all hands on deck, whether that's coordinating with our sports scientists, you know, talking to the AD at the facilities that we rent to make sure that we're, you know, maintaining contact and in good terms and everything is in order for our facility access and all those good things, equipment, you know, needs that we might have as a staff. Also, all those good things. And again, you know, it's a variety of different hats and just otherwise plugging gaps where they come up.
Coach Vance. Oh, by yourself.
Sorry about that. I didn't want you guys to hear the baby. But in the fall, we, well, pretty much my duties are to make sure cross country, you know, I serve as, you know, operations coordinator as well. So I'm making sure that all of our travel and everything is complete, you know, in the fall for you know, cross country, indoor and outdoor, because, you know, once the season starts rolling, you really don't have time to try to especially having your own, event group that you are responsible for. You don't have time to just do all of that paperwork and all that back end stuff in season. In season, the weeks are short. You guys know how it is. You get to train 3 days and you're back on the road again competing that weekend. So in the fall, that's what I do. I make sure that everything in the office is taken care of as far as travel, uniforms, everything. Also, help assisting with, incoming freshmen, setting up our meetings, making sure that, they have their class schedules, they're getting in the dorms, well. I'm pretty much like the first point of contact, when it comes to that being that liaison for, academics and stuff like that. So that's pretty much what the fall is. And outside of, coaching, that's what we take care of first thing in the fall.
For the change in season?
Yes. Oh, so in season, I'm not doing a lot of paperwork. Okay. So in season, we have short weeks. So I'm making sure that, I'm setting the schedule with the buses, the hotels. What I really like to do is just make sure everything goes smooth. You don't want any hiccups. So, and kind of get into a routine. So now that the athletes are into this routine, they already know what to expect. We usually leave at a certain time. If we're going to have food delivered in, or, we're going out, all those things are set out, and they have all of that whole schedule prior to us leaving. So they have an itinerary of how things are going to go. We keep in touch with them using GroupMe, even throughout, the week or on the road. And that's really how we keep everything, top notch, with keeping everything going smoothly. The smoother the travel, the easier, the better opportunity they have to compete. So I try to focus on making that transition very smooth, so that everything just kind of, keep the ball rolling.
Coach David, I know you kind of a unique situation because you're the head cross country and you're the assistant track. So how you really don't have too much of a off season. So how did that work out with you?
Yeah. So it's a little bit different being the only distance coach on the panel, I guess. But for me, off seasons, like, the semester breaks. So I mean, season, always recruiting, always, calling kids, talking to them, figuring out like, oh, can I go see this kid run? Can I go see that kid run? But that's everybody, every event group, everybody that wants to be successful, you're always recruiting. So I think for me, the biggest things is like staying on top of the kids, making sure they're going to class, making sure they're, doing their homework, making sure they're in the classes they need to be in to graduate, and I think off season, calling kids on the phone and just keeping in contact, seeing how they're doing, asking how your mom's doing, I think sometimes the kids make fun of me, but I'll call them and be like, hey, how are you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, what's going on, and just talking to them and staying on top of them, that kind of thing. And then in terms of like, the housekeeping kind of stuff, kind of just keeping the ball rolling on, all right, this is going to be the schedule. So we got to set up the hotels for this meet, and we got to set up, are we going to take vans or are we going to take a bus? Like, all right, we're going to, who are we taking to Mount Sac this year? Who's, all right, we got to buy those tickets, and kind of always looking far enough ahead that, you're not staring down the barrel of the gun trying to buy the Mount Sac tickets on Monday for the flight on Thursday and letting things get out of hand. So I think the biggest thing is just staying organized and staying on top of it and juggling kind of all the diff plates of like, how are your kids doing academically? How are they doing emotionally? How's their training going? How's, did I book that hotel? All that fun stuff.
Coach Davis.
I think a lot of people touched on it. I'm fortunate to be moving from head coach to assistant coach. So, my workload is much less. Here I help out, with kind of the compliance liaison for our team. We're fortunate enough to have a director of operations that takes a huge load off of us and our coaching staff. And our director of ops, Catherine Hoskin, may be one of the best in the game. She does a really good job staying on top of everything. So even when I'm struggling with my one thing I have to do, a lot of times she's like, okay, come on, Austin, you can do it this way. But so honestly, I mean, I feel bad now. You go from being very busy to doing everything that Coach David just listed, and still coaching your group, and and being over top of everything, to now where I'm pretty much making sure our playing practice season is locked in, and little odds and ends that come up. And I've just been fortunate to be at a place where we have a lot of help, where a lot of administrative tasks are taken care of by our director of ops. So from a administrative side point, compliance, from recruiting standpoint, like everybody else said, is try to chip in and help out. I'm fortunate enough to coach 2 events, just a long jump and triple jump here. So that's not common in a lot of schools. So I do try to chip in and help recruit, whether it's women's sprints, men's sprints. About like Coach April said, I'll pick up the phone and call anybody. I'll pick up the phone and call anybody, any event group. And if you don't hang up on me immediately, I'm gonna stay on the phone with you until you do. So that's typically what my weeks look like throughout the year. So it's not very strenuous.
Well, do any of you feel that there's a misconception about this assistant coach and his role, or in your opinion, Coach Vance?
If you're not in the coaching world, I think so. But pretty much, other coaches know kind of, what our role really is and what we really do as coaches. And it's not just, a lot of times, it's not just, that 3 to 5:30 time that we get to spend on track. It's a lot that comes with it. We wear a lot of different hats. We're not only coaches, but, we're mentors. We're life coaches, we're academic advisors. We become, second parents to the athletes, and they depend on us, and the parents also are dependent on us. So, from the outside looking in, there could be a big misconception, or, maybe people think that, the assistant coaches get to ride the train while, someone else is doing the work. But everyone knows that, to have a great program, everyone is pitching in and doing a lot of other things outside of just coaching. So that would be my thought on that.
Good. Andreas, I know you deal with, you've dealt with college people, you deal with college, high school, and pros. So you kind of have a different filter on a lot of things. How does the misconception of what your role is in all those facets come in play?
Well, I think Tempest hit it right on the head. I think, especially from the outside looking in, being a coach, not just an assistant coach, but any coach, is definitely more than just a job. It's not something that you can just clock in, 9 o'clock in the morning and clock out at 5 in the afternoon. Like, even when you're not coaching per se, you're probably reading something that you're trying to apply to coaching, even if it isn't a coaching book, or you're cooking dinner in the evening and you're thinking about, oh man, this practice session, if something, I could have done this or that better. Maybe if I switch this up, oh, that's a great idea. And, before you know it, your entree is catching fire in a pan or something. So it's definitely more than just a job. And I think Tempest also mentioned, from an athlete perspective, sometimes athletes don't realize what goes into coaching. Because I've had athletes tell me like, oh man, I want to be a coach when I'm done. This is great. All you do is show up to the track for like 2 hours a day, and the rest of the day you're off. And I'm like, hold on. You clearly have no understanding of what goes into being a, full-time coach. So I really feel like those are the 2 main misconceptions that people just don't understand.
Austin?
I pretty much have to second everything that everybody said. you know, no successful program only has just a successful head coach. You know, and it's nice being on the other side of being a head coach and then getting to come back down to being an assistant. I kind of joke with our head coach here, Tim, a lot. I'm like, man, I'm glad I ain't got to do what you got to do, man. But you know, you are kind of the first line of you know, interaction with the kids. You know, day in, day out, you do kind of have a pretty good pulse on at least what your event group is doing, if not the whole team a lot of times. And you know, I think, you know, as an assistant coach, you know, you got your goals and your aspirations that you want for your event group, and you got to figure out a way how that fits in the team with the head coach's goals. So making sure that you're constantly in line with that is something that can, you know, sometimes not always be easy. You know, I do remember that being a struggle for me when I was a younger coach. You know, just coming out and like, hey man, we can win a national championship. We do X, Y, and Z, and I have no clue, you know, what X, Y, and Z is, because I'm looking at, you know, I'm looking at the forest. I'm looking at directly the tree instead of, you know, looking at the forest through the trees. But, you know, as you kind of grow as an assistant and you've been able to, you know, to be able to kind of be on the same page, it takes constant communication to be on the same page with the athletes, the head coach, the administrators, and you have to be active in that process. It's, you know, it's like Andreas said, it's not just showing up the practice for those 2 hours, you know, just for those training groups, making sure that you're actively involved, because you're going to be able to get, the assistant coach is going to be able to get a chance to be able to really go over the fine details. You know, it's interesting in hearing Tempest say that she did travel, and here and April said that she did travel. Like when I was a head coach, I love the fact that I did it, but I had a great assistant coach that helped me out with it. And, you know, a head coach is going to make sure that everything's kind of going in the right direction. You know, they kind of just putting their foot down on the gas. So I feel like the assistant coaches, you know, and the support staff is really what makes it go. So you always have your unsung heroes in that. I think everybody on this panel has had great athletes, but, you know, I think, you know, we wouldn't be on this panel if we weren't good at the administrative side of our job, just because we wouldn't be in it for very long, you know. So I think that's kind of the big misconception. It is just more than coaching. You do have to get along with people. You got to, you know, kind of get in where you fit in and make sure that things are moving in the right direction. Even if you write on, you know, hey, this kid can triple jump X amount, or this kid can run this fast, you know, you got to make sure that, you know, what you're trying to do fits in with the greater picture. And sometimes that can be hard. So I think the great assistant coaches do it really well with making sure that their goals kind of align with what the program's goals are, and those are usually more successful programs.
Coach David.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything everybody else said. You know, especially Coach Vance, and that, you know, the 2 hours you're at practice is the fun part, but that's not, you know, that's not all it is. That's not even most of what it is. That's why you do the other stuff. But yeah, there's so much else that goes into it, whether it's, you know, reading and bettering yourself, or, you know, listening to people talk, or, you know, trying to pull somebody aside at a meet and asking a couple questions like, hey coach, like how do you do that? What are you doing? You know, just all the other stuff that goes into it. Yeah, just agree with everybody else.
April.
Well, just like everybody, you know, I think the main misconception comes from, you know, the outside looking in. You know, it's always going to be like this. If you ask any assistant coaches, you know, or head coach, they go tell you it's not always rainbows and butterflies. So they see just the end result sometimes. They don't see the things we do behind the scenes to keep the program running. So I think that once they, like you tell them, because like for me, for instance, I know I always have my family members like, oh, you get to go here, you get to go there, you travel so much. But if you ask any coach, they'll tell you any day, I'd rather be at home. Like, I know it's difficult. Like, well, I'm not gonna say difficult. It's a change. Even in the pandemic, you know, it's probably for some coaches, probably the best thing they probably could have happened, because it gives us a chance to sit down and reevaluate some things as far as like training programs, or certain things we do in the program, relax, spend more time with the family. So I know it's been beneficial for me in that aspect, because like I said, I get to stay home. I mean, granted, my light bill has skyrocketed, my grocery bill has skyrocketed because of it, but so that part is adjustment. But I do think that, you know, like I said, with the people looking outside in, you know, they just see the end results. They don't really see the things that we do behind the scenes. Like Van said, you know, they just see us, you know, come to practice and stuff, and that's it, you know. But it's much more than that. It's much more to being a head coach or assistant coach than just the end result.
Yeah, I think I touched on a lot of things where a lot of people look at as coaches that you get to travel all the time. You don't always want to travel all the time.
Exactly.
So, you know, being an assistant coach, you know you have the responsibility to the program, you have the responsibility to the head coach. You know, what is that like? Can you describe your responsibilities at your respective programs for the program itself and for the head coach? Because, you know, he's the one that gave you the job. Let's go, Coach Austin.
So I mean, it's kind of simple. I mean, you know, my responsibility to the head coach is to assist. So I mean, you know, you can disagree but buy in. You know, and then fortunate, you know, our head coach here, you know, he's really he really values everybody on the staff's opinion. So you do get your input. You always gonna get a chance to voice your opinion. But you know, every now and then, you know, as a leader, he has to, you know, make a direction on whether that's the way everybody wants to go, everybody doesn't. So, you know, just making sure that what I'm doing helps him in whatever vision that he has. You know, he hired me for a specific thing. I have specific skill sets that help along with that. And to make sure that I'm always, you know, I'm adding to that. So, you know, as my responsibility for myself that I take on is to take the ego out of it. And always try to figure out what I can do to help. You know, and it's easier once you've been, you know, I think for me, it's easier coming from a head coaching role and having that full responsibility and the weight of the program. So I'm able to respect the decision a little bit easier, you know, with knowing that there are always more things at play than what I may know, you know, as an assistant. But being able to trust the vision and do everything in my power to kind of bring it to life. So I'm not sure if I exactly answered it, but I feel like that's kind of all encompassing. My responsibility to the head coach is to make sure I'm doing what the hell he want, you know, what the hell he want to do, and to try to figure out a way to make that as smooth as possible, you know.
Right.
And the lead, and I can curse if I want to at the house. I can curse at the house, but you know, most time, you know, I may not see the whole full picture. Then, you know, things will play out. I'm like, dang, okay, that's why you want to do X, Y, and Z. So just having that trust and make sure I'm doing my part.
David?
Yeah, I mean, I really like that, like, disagree but buy in. I think, you know, the head coach executes the vision for the program, and as a result of that, the program is a direct reflection of the head coach. And so as the assistant coach, like, if you have a different vision, it's still your responsibility to be a good assistant. And so, you know, you can open a dialogue and have constructive criticism and, you know, talk about how, you know, maybe things can be done better, you know, your opinions, but, you know, there's definitely a time and place for that, you know, and it's not in public, it's not in front of the kids, it's, you know, but, and then at the same time, you know, the head coach listens to you, but they have the final word. And so, you had your, you know, if it's a situation where you think it should be done one way and the head coach thinks it should be done another, and you talk about it and the head coach hears you but doesn't change their mind, then that's the way it's got to be. And you have to be bought in and, you know, sell it to the kids like it was your idea, because that's what's happening and that's what you need to do as an assistant. And so I think, you know, you can take that as a learning opportunity and say, all right, well, when I'm a head coach, I'm going to do it different. But sometimes you don't, until you are a head coach, you don't realize that it's doing it that way for a reason. And I think that's one of the things I'm getting to learn this year, being, you know, stepping into a head coaching role, is like, you know, I remember being an assistant and being like, oh, I would do this different, I would do that different. And now a year in, I'm like, all right, yeah, maybe that makes a lot of sense. So, so yeah, I think, you know, what Coach was talking about before, stepping into an assistant role after being a head coach, I think that's probably really interesting too. and having a little bit more perspective on, you know, what it's like to be a head coach and where they're coming from and why they're doing things the way they're doing it. So yeah, I think I fully agree.
Andreas?
I think so. One of the big, obviously, coach has already mentioned, your job is to make the saying is your job is as an assistant to make the head coach look good. You know, I think a big part of that is from a responsibility standpoint, representing the institution or company well in all facets, whether that's when you're out on the road, whether that's, you know, you're walking the halls of, you know, any building that's on campus or any facility that you use. Like we rent our weight room, so we make sure that we're, you know, representing ourselves well at all times there. The other one, a big one, is bringing in talent and leaving your event group in a better place than when you found it, but also bringing in talent that is a good cultural fit. And I realize that isn't always easy, but bringing in talent that necessarily isn't a good cultural fit, whether that's from an academic standpoint, a location standpoint, oftentimes can lead to more problems than not, and headaches for the assistant and the head coach. So I think those are two big responsibilities. And obviously I don't have to deal with this, but I know from an NCAA standpoint, I'm thankful I don't have to deal with this anymore, but obviously making sure that everything is on point from compliance. I still remember all those years of having to go to a certain amount of compliance meetings. And I was the volunteer assistant. I wasn't even one of the assistants who had to take the test, but I still had to go to several compliance meetings, you know, liaise with the compliance folks every so often. Yeah, and just make sure you're representing and doing everything by the book as best you can.
April?
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's just what Andreas said, you know, just making sure your head coach's job is a lot easier, you know, by doing things like not getting in trouble, making sure you know your rules, the NCAA rules and your conference rules. So you won't get any trouble through your compliance office. That's the main thing. And just like you said, make sure that, which is very true about making sure you recruit kids that will fit your program. You know, I know we've probably all had at one point a kid that we really, really wanted, and it didn't turn out, you know, you didn't get them. And then later on you find out you dodged the bullet. So, yeah, so that's a blessing in disguise, shall I say. So I definitely agree with that. Just, you know, making sure that, you know, you kind of, you know, ease his worries a little bit. Make sure that your head coach can trust you. So, you know, if he's out sick on the road or whatever, make sure that if he's gone, making sure that the program, he feels like it's in good hands and he's not having to deal with what he's dealing with at home or on the road, and then constantly have to keep calling back, you know, making sure this is happening, that is happening with the program, so that he should feel that he can leave. He could leave and his program could run smoothly and be okay while he's out.
Coach Vance?
I mean, these guys, you know, said it all almost. I think what I would add, and what I think everybody is, you know, at the end of the day saying, is that you have to be loyal to your head coach. You don't want to cause any division, you know, within your team, because that won't lead to success for the, you know, for the entire team. Definitely make his job or her job easier. I mean, that's why you're there. Have that conversation with your head coach. You know, I think it's our responsibility to have that conversation to kind of really understand what he or she needs from you and what he or she is expecting from you, so that you're not doing anything outside of that that could be taken away from what, you know, he or she really needs you there to do. So have that conversation, you know, make sure you're fulfilling, you know, or because you could be putting more on you than, you know, he's actually or she's actually asking, and it's taken away from what he really needs you for. So just having that conversation, I think that's our responsibility to kind of get on that communication level to where you can have those conversations with your head coach, so that you are making sure you're delivering everything possible in your, you know, in your position that he's looking for, and getting to a place where, you know, definitely establishing that trust where, like April said, you know, he can be away and know that he doesn't have to stress about what's going on with the team, or he may, travel, teams sometimes split meets and go, some of the team will go to this meet, another team, half the team may go to another meet, and, he's comfortable with knowing that he's still being represented well in his absence.
Well, since you kind of segue into my next question about communication, how do y'all keeping y'all good? And anybody can answer this at any time. I'm not going to pick on anybody this time, but how do you keep that good communication with your head coach and other staff members to where, I've seen where programs or disintegrate from the inside just because communication is not there. So how are you and your staff now and everything like that, or in the past, how did y'all keep the good communication going with the head coach and with other staff members?
I'll jump in. With our staff, you really have to, I think another coach mentioned it earlier, you have to sit your egos at the door, and coming in, and we're like a team, a mini team, within ourselves. So how we communicate and how we interact is going to play a huge role in how the athletes interact, because if we're not on the same page, they're not going to be on the same page, and you run into those issues of, one event group feeling like, their coach should be the head coach, that you have that division within the team. So we keep an open dialogue. We communicate very frequently. Nothing is really not said that anything that has to do with the progression and us getting better and continuing what we're doing has to be laid out on the table firsthand. So having that respect for your colleague, respect them enough to where they can tell you something and you can accept it without taking something personal, So I think respect is a big thing. Respecting each other in that way is easier to communicate, because we all, have room to grow everywhere. So.
Anybody want to chime in?
But just kind of, to piggyback off, what you said, I think for me, I communicate maybe a little bit too much via all ways of, communicating, whether it's email, text, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is. I do it with the assistant coaches, head coaches, even with my athletes. Because one, I don't, especially if it's something important, I don't want them to say they didn't get it. So I definitely communicate like that. But I definitely agree that, you have to sit your egos aside, because you sometimes when you have your own thought process, you're so just like driven and you're so 100% behind the way you're thinking that you get blinded sometimes and you can't see the way the head coach is thinking or your assistant coach is, thinking. So sometimes, you have to have a sit down conversation with them and, like, hey, am I tripping? Like, or help me see it from your aspect or a different aspect, so you don't want to just shut the door on certain things, because it's going to make you a little jaded towards your coworkers or your boss. So you definitely have to, keep an open mind as you're communicating with your fellow coworkers or your boss.
Yeah, I have to second both of you guys. Y'all knocked it out of the park. kind of just go back to that whole thing. Got to have thick skin, and then we got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we need to be listening twice as much as we're talking. So, for me personally, I love the staff that I work with. We all get along pretty well. I get along with everybody pretty well. So, I think just trying to, make sure that you have that thick skin. When people are talking to you, try to extract the information from it and leave the emotion out. I always try to act, operate off of what I know for fact and not off of what I think somebody might have meant by it, and if I need clarification on what they meant, then I just ask, like, what did you mean by quite that? And then a lot of times it ain't nothing personal behind it, but, having thick skin and then taking everything as, making sure that you're clearly communicating what you want to get across. If it's something that's heavy on you, make sure that you have those conversations when you can in person. Don't hide behind a text or email if those situations ever do come up. And you know, just be there to support each other. You know, always try to act from a role of support. You know, always try to leave, if it's a rough emotion for yourself, try to act off of what you know is fact. Like, well, they did this because they probably feel this way, or they did that because they feel that way. I think, you know, the bigger of a staff that you're on, the more that can kind of creep in and be what tears you apart. You know, your smaller staffs, you don't always quite see that because it's, you know, 2 full-time coaches, 3 full-time coaches, and they got to have each other's back by necessity. So I think, you know, operating off what you know is fact, have thick skin, and try to always operate from an area of support. I think, you know, that's the way I try to keep good communication with everybody on our staff. You know, I think it's never really led me in the wrong direction.
Well, I think really understanding how to handle any conflicts is vital, especially from your own personal communication standpoint. I think obviously there are always going to be situations of disagreement, but there are different ways to approach that. And I think a valuable skill to learn is to be able to express your displeasure, but do it in a tactful and constructive way. I mean, too many times I see, you know, not just coaching, any life situation, people don't know how to express themselves in a, you know, respectful way when they disagree with something, to be able to foster dialogue and an actual resolution or a answer to what's actually bothering them. It's just too, you know, and obviously this depends on the person that you're talking to. Like, some people won't hear you if you're not at a certain level of aggression. Other people won't hear you at all if you're coming at them the wrong way. So you kind of need to understand what the disagreement is, who the parties are, who the people in front of you are, and decide the best way and strategy to communicate that to make it effective and also be, you know, still as respectful as possible. And I think that goes a long way towards, you know, if you have a staff that can discuss things and disagree and find solutions to those disagreements, I think that's a staff you'll roll together really well. It's the ones who, like, you know, Coach Austin said, if you don't have a thick skin or you take things personally from jump, where, you know, you run into difficulties and problems.
Well, this is the end. So now's the time for you to give any words of advice for those seeking assistant jobs on any level, or those who just really want to get into the profession of coaching track and field. Anybody? I'm going to start with Coach David.
Yeah, I mean, I think my best advice would be find somebody you can learn from. Find somebody that's gonna mentor you and grow you and help you develop yourself as a coach and be the best coach you can be. And, you know, who's gonna challenge you and give you more responsibilities, and not, you know, maybe not more than you can handle, but enough. Because I think, you know, I think that's the most important thing. I think, you know, getting thrown in to more than you can handle is, it's not great. But then also getting treated like, you know, you're just here to, like, hold the stopwatch, hold the clipboard, drive the van, and never really progress beyond that. I don't think either of those situations are good. So yeah, find a good mentor.
Coach April.
I would have to say the best advice I can give them is make sure you become a student of your event or the sport. These kids, especially these kids these days, they know when you're BSing them, so they can figure that out pretty quickly. So make sure you're doing things to better yourself as a coach. I know I do for myself, whether it's a book, a DVD, or going to a clinic or shadowing a coach, or whatever it is. To this day, I still do that. I always want to make sure every year that I am re-upping in something. So I feel that makes me better as a coach and to keep me growing as a coach as well. So I would definitely say make sure that you become a student and you have to immerse yourself into knowing your event area, because it's going to tell. Your kid's going to know that you don't know what you're doing, and you're going to get exposed. So.
Coach Davis.
I say build a relationship with your student athletes. You know, we've all been successful, but I mean, honestly, you know, our jobs here is to make sure that they get better. They leave us as better athletes and more importantly, as better people. So build a relationship with them. You know, try to find out what are the things that are important with them and what are important to them, and help be that bridge that you know helps them become that you know, especially on the college level or any level, but you know, make sure that you're helping them grow as a person. That takes a little bit more than just the X's and the O's, you know. But you know, they don't really care what you know until they know what you care. So that's something I'd say. Don't ever lose sight of that. And it can be easy to lose sight of that if you know, if like you were, you know, kind of my path with going from being an assistant at a full-time job, albeit a low-time full-paying job, and really trying to figure out how to, you know, to work my way up the ladder. Never forget about the kids. You know, that's the one thing I would say.
Coach Vance.
I would advise, I guess, you know, coaches before me took a couple of things I was going to say, so I can kind of gear my answer to female coaches to kind of help out. But it's a lot of things to consider when getting into coaching. As April mentioned earlier, you know, starting a family and things like that, you know, you kind of want to have that planned out and make sure you're in a situation to where, you know, that can be fruitful for you in that situation, because it's not always like that for you know, everybody's situation is different, but it's not always like that for the female coaches. So a lot of things to consider. Make sure you really kind of do your due diligence. I know in the beginning, getting in, you just kind of want to get your foot in the door, and I'm all for that. Make sure once that foot is in the door, you work hard, you know, like you're still trying to get there. You know, you always want to continue to make yourself better. If a coach give you, you know, an opportunity to learn something new, you know, jump in at full speed. You know, if it comes, you know, with anything, academics, you know, compliance, you know, anything that's going to make you a well-rounded coach. Because if you have ambitions of, you know, being a head coach yourself one day, you're going to need all of that. So that would be my advice. And definitely, you know, I always say, keep it loyal, be loyal, you know, make sure you're someone that people can trust. The kids can trust, the parents can trust, you know, that goes a lot further than, you know, what you can do actually on the track, you know. And I can tell you, you know, just speaking with other head coaches and my own head coach, you know, they always preach, you know, nothing is like having, you know, some loyal assistants. And, you know, they're not that, you know, they're hard to come by, I hear, you know. So, you know, make sure you're that diamond in the rough, and your path will be a successful one.
Coach Andreas.
Yeah, I mean, all really good points. Coaching is a lifelong learning endeavor. So I think the goal should be to never stop learning and expand it beyond your event area. Like, learn other event areas around track and field. Expand your knowledge to things that kind of supplement track and field, whether that's nutrition, therapy, you know, sleep, psychology. Those may all be things that you may not necessarily be doing yourself, but it will help you communicate better with practitioners. It'll give you a better relationship with your training staff. It'll give you a better relationship with your S&C coaches if you understand the nuts and bolts of what they're trying to do. Also, it gives you better understanding of being able to network with different people. You have more things to talk about. You know, don't be afraid to ask questions of other coaches. A way that I learned was just respectfully asking coaches about different things I was interested in. That's a way to network while, you know, kind of being authentic about it, and not just networking for the sake of a job, but networking for the betterment of yourself. Same goes for, like Coach April said, you know, attending clinics. Again, that's just a way to network that is authentic, and that you're all communally there to learn and upscale yourselves. So I think just understanding that coaching goes beyond your event area, because if you understand the other event areas in track and field, you can talk to coaches from different event areas, or You can talk to head coaches who may have a different event area than you're in, but then still be able to talk to them not just about what you're doing, but more importantly about what they're doing and how their event group is doing, and do it from a knowledgeable standpoint. So that would be my advice.
I agree. Thank you all. One of the things that I would tell everybody is take note, because if you see this panel is full of different event areas. So the best thing to do is, like Coach Andreas said, is know other coaches from other event areas, because they may be that catalyst to get to that position and be able to bring you in because of the conversations you had, and then you stepped outside the box and went to talk to a person who's distance oriented or those oriented, and then they get this position, they're able to find you. And it's like, well, I remember this conversation we had, and this person right here is a very intellectual person. He or she knows what they're doing. I think this person would be a great fit. And we synced with our conversation. We felt that chemistry, that we can do something together. So you never doubt those conversations you have with people. Always find mentors out there. And I thank all of you. All of y'all are part of my family, whether it's through friendships, the sport itself, those are even for job opportunities. I thank all of you for being a part of this program, and I wish you nothing but the best in the future.
Thank you.
All right.